the door is open over here, so if any sisters will come late downstairs and they want to come upstairs to see the presentation, please ask them to come from the front masjid door entrance, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم الدين أما بعد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. The plan for tonight, inshallah, agenda is I'll be speaking for about 10 minutes, and then we have our guest speaker, Sister Shima. She'll be speaking, and then we'll have Dr. Arshad Siddiqui, inshallah, will be speaking. Then after that, I'll be doing a moderated panel questions to both of our panelists. And these specific questions related to the topic of mental health, inshallah. And if any of you from the audience have questions, then we'll take that at the end. We'll try to wrap it up by 9:40, inshallah, because we have later than Isha tonight. So even if we can delay Isha 5 minutes, then continue no problem. So that's the agenda for tonight, inshallah. If you get a question while you're listening to the speakers, I would suggest that you write it down in your phone and your app, and then later on ask, inshallah. As I informed earlier, today we did if you have little kids, please send them downstairs so they don't. Who's the father or mother of this child? Red t-shirt, Spider-Man. Where's your father, Spider-Man? No. So, how many of you were here in Jummah Khutbah today? Jummah Khutbah, right? So you listened to the story of Abu Umama that I mentioned, and I said I'll complete the story tonight. So Abu Umama, he had said to Rasulullah that his worries and his concerns and stress were so much high that he came to the masjid. Those of you who were around here at Jummah, this is an incident in Medina that happened 1450 years ago. And this incident teaches us a lesson how important it is to have mental health and mental stability. And our Prophet Muhammad was equally concerned for it, and he would give medicine, both spiritual medicine and there would be physical medicine in the time that he would ask people to go seek a medical professional for mental sicknesses in order to take that. So Abu Umama was sitting there in the masjid, not in a salah time. There was no time for salah, as he said, that to him. And so Rasulullah told him about a dua. He taught him a dua, which you have heard many times. You've been listening to this dua from childhood days. Some people have memorized it, some have not, but it is mentioned in all the books of dua. You can even Google it, you'll find out the dua of distress or the dua of depression. So he said to Abu Umama that whenever you wake up in the morning and whenever you are in the evening, after the qaylula, after the afternoon short nap, he said whenever you wake up, recite this dua: Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-hammi wal-hazan, wa a'udhu bika min al-ajzi wal-kasal, wa a'udhu bika min al-jubni wal-bukhl, wa a'udhu bika min ghalabat al-dayn wa qahr al-rijal. So this is the long dua that Rasul taught Abu Umama in this incident, and the dua translation is that say, "O Allah, I seek refuge in you from worry and sadness. I seek refuge in you from weakness and laziness. I seek refuge in you from cowardice and miserliness. And I seek refuge in you from being overwhelmed by debt and the tyranny of men." Because remember, Abu Umama said that my debts, my loans, this is personal loans, personal debt that you've taken from individuals. He said that those loans and debts have grown so high, it has created a stress for me. And that stress has brought me to the masjid at this odd hour, because he was sitting in the masjid during middle of the day when it was not time for Dhuhr or Asr or any salah. And that's why Rasul said to Abu Umama that why do I see you in the masjid not in a time of salah? What's the problem? What's wrong? And so that's why Abu Umama told him that I am so distressed, I am so sad, depressed, because of the worries and concerns I have in my life, and because of the debt that has piled up. And that's why in the dua, he taught him that I seek refuge from the overwhelming debt. Min ghalabat al-dayn. The word ghalaba maghlub means that you are overwhelmed, you are overpowered, you are buried. So literally, if somebody is buried in debt, this is the best dua to recite. That ghalabat al-dayn wa qahr al-rijal. Qahr al-rijal means that people who want to hurt you, who want to harm you, Allah is, Rasulullah is saying, seek refuge in Allah from that. You will protect. So that's the reason tonight. I want to thank all of you, the community, brothers and sisters, for such a beautiful response, because let me tell you why. A few months back, I believe 6-7 months back, Al-Falah Masjid, Al-Falah in Bridgewater, sister over there, she reached out to me and said that we're doing this suicide prevention workshop, and that's where I met Sister Shima. She was the workshop conductor there. So the sister from Falah Masjid said, we need an imam who can come and talk about this topic and its importance in Falah, in Bridgewater. I said, fine, I'll come. So I went there, I attended the workshop briefly, and I spoke to the people. I also gave a Jummah khutbah at Falah in Bridgewater. And then I told Sister Shima, inshallah, that we want you to come here and educate our people. And like I said today in Jummah khutbah, that every imam should talk about this. Every masjid should do such a program, because masjid is a community hub. It's the heart of the community. So we need to talk about it, especially with our youth. If you remember in the khutbah today, I mentioned so many American Muslim youth are committing suicide. You don't find out. You don't know, because the news will not reach out to you. The news channel, can we not control this child? So take him downstairs, take him outside. So it is very important to understand that this topic is very dear and near to me individually, personally, and also as a community leader. Because when I am sitting in my office, for the last 2 years that I've been here, so many sisters and so many brothers have reached out to me for help, for counseling. 90% of them is because of marital discord, wives and husbands, both. And it's both sides. Don't just think it's one gender that is, compromised. Both genders. I have many times husbands, you might laugh at this, but this is a real story I'm telling you. Many times husbands come to me and say, hey, Imam Sahib, I need help. My wife is violent. Bartan is baby. She's a sandal baby. So I need help. And at the same time, yes, sisters also come that my husband is very abusive, the marriage is not working out, I'm stressed out, all kinds of things going on. And then youngsters, youth have come to me and said, I'm considering suicide. And that's the reason that I reached out to Sister Shima and said, we really need to do this program in our masjid. We need to have people who are trained. That's why she's here tonight. And I know 13 of you have registered already for the workshop she's doing tomorrow morning from 7 to 1. We want more people. We need at least 25, 30 people. So after tonight, sisters and brothers, you want to register, please go to that Google form link, which is in the WhatsApp group for MCNJ. If you're not in that group, ask Brother Uzair, he'll send it to you. And before I hand over the mic to Sister Shima, I just want to mention a hadith of Rasulullah, because a lot of times people say, like I said in the Jummah khutbah today, that this is a taboo topic. There's a stigma in our society that if you go to see a psychiatrist, if you go to see a psychologist or a therapist, you are pagal. Because when I tell people in my office that, you need to go see a psychiatrist, they say to me, Imam Sahib, मैं पागल नहीं हूँ, मुझे पागल नहीं बनाए, मैं कब मुझे ना पागल बना. Because they're taught really, literally dimag ki dahi bana dete hain. With all due respect, because they are stressed out. And that's why me being their sounding board, you think that, Imam is not doing any work. Imam is sitting there listening to people's problems, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. And it's all confidentiality. None of you know who comes to my office, and the people who are sitting here, they know that they have come to my office, both brothers and sisters. Because this work of counseling, especially Islamic spiritual counseling, is done with utmost confidentiality. More confidentiality than the HIPAA laws, because it's a very delicate thing. And nobody knows who has seen me, and nobody knows who has talked to me, but I know the people. I see them every day in the masjid, and that's the reason I've invited these extremely talented medical professionals, because People think that medical illness can be cured just by reading Quran, just by namaz. So many people come to me in my office, they say, I went to this person, this Pir Sahib, this Hakim Sahib, they give me a taweez or they give me this dua, and they just said, just read this and you'll be fine, nothing wrong. You are just being too psyched up, that's wrong. Those imams, those maulanas, those shayukh who say that mental illness is no illness and you just need to read Quran and pray namaz, salah and you'll be gone, they are wrong. They don't know what they're talking about. Secondly, they're not educated enough from the hadith, and they're not educated enough from the worldly science that mental sickness is a real thing. There are certain hormones that are secreted in our brain, in the glands. And sometimes when those hormones have an imbalance, you have a chemical imbalance. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a physician, but I've gone through this, and I've spoken to doctors, and they've told me that, there has to be a medication. So I want to mention this hadith of Rasulullah who talks about this specific topic. Abu Darda reported that the Messenger of Allah, peace and blessing be upon him, said, Verily Allah sent down the disease and the cure, and for every disease He made a cure. Seek treatment, but do not seek treatment by unlawful means. Sunan Abi Dawud, number 3874. The Arabic of that is, and Abi Darda, قال Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, إن الله أنزل الداء والدواء وجعل لكل داء دواء فتداووا. The fi'l amr, the word that is obligatory word in this hadith is he's saying fatadawa'u. He's saying seek medical help, not just for physical illnesses, even mental illness. You need medication, you need certain things to calm you down, to give you calmness. You can ask anyone who hasn't slept at night properly. If you're sleeping 3-4 hours a night, then automatically your brain starts going worked up and you start behaving in a very irrational manner, and they can talk more about that. That's why doctors always say you need 6-7 hours of sleep. When you start having less sleep, your brain gets tired, fatigued, and then you start acting out, weird. And then people say, oh, this person has become, pagal or majnoon or crazy. No, they're not. They need rest, they need sleep. And in another hadith, Rasulullah said that, O servants of Allah, seek treatment. Verily Allah did not place a disease, but that He also placed its treatment or cure, except for one ailment, which means death. There is no cure for death. When death comes, it will be there. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يا عباد الله تداووا فإن الله لم يدع داء إلا وضع له شفاء أو قال دواء إلا داء واحد, except for one sickness. And that is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in these ayat that I recited today in the Jummah and I recite again now, tells us that our Prophet Muhammad was also worked up. But then he said to him, فَلَعَلَّكَ بَاخِعٌ نَفْسَكَ عَلَى آثَارِهِمْ إِن لَّمْ يُؤْمِنُوا بِهَذَا الَّذِي سَأَسَفَ. That, O Prophet, do not get so worked up, that worried and concerned that these people are not accepting Islam. So therefore, this is something that is real, legitimate. If you know anybody in your circle of friends, in your relatives, in your family, immediately seek medical attention, medical help. Besides the dua and besides the salah and everything. Do not let it go for long, because things get worse when we hush it up and put it under the carpet, especially for youth. I said this in Jummah today and I say it again. I have been to so many janazah of youth who died, quote unquote, mysteriously. We don't know if they died through suicide, but their friends say they left a suicide note, or their friends say, oh, this person committed suicide. The father and mother who at the janazah were sobbing, crying, but said to me, Imam, I wish my son or my daughter spoke to me, told me about it. And I say to the grieving father and mother, why didn't you reach out? Why were you waiting that your son had to come and talk to you? We can go to the bedroom of our son or our daughter and say, are you okay? Is everything fine? How's your stress level? How are you feeling? Husband and wife should also ask each other, how are you doing? How's your stress level? How's your concern? We give stress to each other a lot as husband and wife. But we should also ask our spouse, is your stress level okay? Because if the stress level goes so high, she's gonna just burn out, or you're gonna burn out as a husband. And what happens when two people in the house burn out? They come to the imam. So with that, inshallah, I'll pass on the mic to Sister Shi.
we hope today is the beginning of a conversation and not just a one-night educational program. That this starts a dialogue within your community to keep this going and normalize the conversation around mental health. And so the Imam said, check on your children and check on your spouses, but I ask you as a community, remember to check on each other as well. And we're going to talk about how you do that, checking on one another. And when you ask someone, are you okay, how to answer and be present and create space for the person not. Because it's okay not to be okay. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the slides because we want to hear from you. But we wanted to just kind of discuss what's the difference between mental health and mental illness, talk about a few statistics, and then open the floor to questions and conversations on mental health. So mental health, so there's mental health and then there's mental illness. So Arshad will talk to us about mental illness because he's a medical director at Princeton House, and I'm a licensed therapist and also a trauma professional, and I do suicide prevention work, not just alhamdulillah in the masjids, but also I've done it overseas as well. So one thing I've learned is that our community is not immune to mental illness. We are not in any way immune to suicide or depression or anxiety. So it's in our community, so how do we address it? In a way that is open, in a way that is welcoming, and recognizing, as the Imam said, that it is a condition of some of the best Muslims that we know. The blessed Prophet ﷺ had his year of grief. And he said, as he buried a child, let your eyes tear, let your heart feel the pain and grief, but let your tongue not say that which is displeasing to Allah. So it's okay to feel it. And then what do we do from there? So mental health is a state of well-being in which a person realizes that his or her abilities can cope with normal stressors. Some of us have stressors that are beyond the normal realm, right? So it is hard sometimes to manage that. And can work productively and fruitfully if you're able to make a contribution to your community and to yourself, right? So that's mental health. Mental illness, on the other hand.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay. So mental illness is the same way your body can be ill. You can get sick, your lung can get an infection, your heart can get, you can have a heart attack. You can have mental illness the same way. Your emotions can get sick. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us normal human emotions: anxiety, sadness, euphoria, which is extreme happiness, and anger, right? We all feel those. And these are emotions that we should embrace. They're beautiful, right? And we should express to each other when we're angry, when we're sad, and have a discussion with our family about that. Now, when these emotions become overwhelming, like Imam Jalal mentioned, that's when we are beyond the scope of us being able to deal with it with everyday things, right? So what keeps us safe? For us, our faith is protected. We pray 5 times a day. That is our way of checking in every day and grounding ourselves, right? It's built into our faith. Wonderful, right? And we come to the masjid, we see each other, we see faces, so we don't get isolated, right? We come during Ramadan, we see each other all day, all night, right? It's wonderful. When you're depressed, you don't want to see anybody, right? You're too overwhelmed, almost to the point. I've seen Hafizis who, they don't want to go to the masjid because they're so depressed, even though everything in their heart and their teaching tells them you should go. They can't because they are overwhelmed and they're not cognitively perceiving the environment as we normally would. What does that mean? It means that when you smile at them, they won't see it. When you say salam to them, they won't feel it, right? When someone tells them, take out the garbage, they're gonna feel like this person hates me, right? When their husband or wife tells them, I had a bad day, they're gonna perceive that as leave me alone. And that's where the problem starts, is when it's beyond the scope of regular everyday interactions, we are overwhelmed. And sometimes when we're overwhelmed by our emotions, we don't sleep, we don't eat, we don't want to see anybody, we don't want to practice our salah, Stop talking to people. Stay home, right? So that's when you know that you're in trouble. The next level of trouble is when you start to hear voices. Happens. Happens all the time. Happens when somebody dies and you hear their voice. Happens when, you're stressed out. Next level up is when you start to have thoughts of, oh, I should just end my life. That is never a normal thought. And the minute that enters your brain, you should talk to somebody. It could just be your friend, it could be your sister, it could be your brother, or it could be a parent, it could be your mom. But it has to be someone. Okay? Now, let's take it one step further. If you're a family member or a community member, and you're seeing that, oh, I haven't seen Khalid in 5 days and he's normally here every day, what's wrong with him? Or Aisha hasn't come to the dinner table, what's wrong with her? She normally always comes. Let's go check in on her. So like Imam Jawad said, go to your children's room, go to your friend's house, give him a call. You can text, but text is the lowest form of communication. Go, see their face, hear their voice, see the pain that they're going through. And that in and of itself will help them. Okay, so the take-home message here is mental illness is like physical illness. Your emotions get sick, and then that's when you reach out for help. Okay?
That leads right into, so we're going to share these slides with the Imam so that you can also see the indicators of what is mental health and then what is mental illness. So now we're going to go to the next slide, and this leads right into what Arshad was saying. So sisters, if you can come up, if you can't see the slide. So there's two women sitting next to each other, right? The woman on the left says, sister, how can you be so depressed? Life is so beautiful. Look around you. You have a house, you have a car. That leads right into, so we're going to share. How can you be depressed? And the woman on the right said, well, sister, how can you have asthma if you are surrounded by air? That doesn't make any sense, right? How can you have asthma if all of us are surrounded by air? Explain. Can somebody explain that? So to what Dr. Siddiqui just said, is that mental illness comes to a point where the sadness is not that I can't see the sun or I can't feel the love. It's the mental illness stops that from happening. And that's what we want your community to walk away from today, is the fact that mental illness is an illness. And it's okay to seek treatment. When someone has asthma, what do they do to treat it? Inhaler, right? We use inhaler, we use medication, and you do exercises. So for depression, your inhaler can be talk therapy. It can be medication. So we want to normalize that conversation around mental illness also being a medical condition. Any questions about that? So we're going to share the slide so everyone can see that as well. So we can skip through the demographics. This is just showing, this was put out by the American Psychiatric Association, and it was specific to the Muslim community. And so we have a large population of Muslims in the state of, in America. Before we go to the next slide, which state in America has the largest number of Muslims? New York? What else did I hear? California?
Michigan.
I hear Jersey. Any more guesses? Michigan, that's a good guess. Okay, so if we go to the next slide, keep going, keep pressing. This just breaks down, the types of Muslims we have. We come from 75 different countries. One more. So the state that is the greenest on the map has the largest number of Muslims. What state is that? New Jersey.
Wow.
MashaAllah, we have the largest number of Muslims in all of America, right? Why is this important? We're going to learn a little bit more about depression and suicide a little later, right? So this is important because we have a large number of Muslims, and one characteristic of the Muslim community is that we carry ourselves as a community, right? So we house and have programs like this in our communities. So when we start talking about mental health within our community, we are then helping one another talk about dialogue and things like that. So when you go to the next slide, this is exactly what Imam talking about, faith leaders in the Muslim community. What do we know? So faith leaders are the Imam and board members and brothers and sisters who lead the mosque. Muslim Americans are more willing, this is a fact, to go to the Imam first before we go to seek mental health treatment. which is a good thing, right? Because we trust our imam. And 95% of the imams who were in this APA survey stated that they spend some of their time doing counseling. So there's no imam that doesn't spend time doing counseling. And these, if you click one more time, this is exactly what the imam just stated. And this is exactly what we deal with: family issues, relationship issues, and then we have anxiety and depression, right? And then one thing about our imams is they're the least trained in mental health, right? But that's okay. We're changing that narrative, and we're changing that dialogue, we're changing that training, because we have imams, like your imam here, who said, no, we're bringing this conversation here. And he's open to not only learning himself, but teaching his community. And then we noted that there is higher rates of anxiety and depression after 9/11. There's a lot of research, correlation between discrimination and bias, and PTSD, anxiety, and depression. So our community is not immune to that. And then Muslims are more likely to report domestic violence to their imams before they report it to any other organization. Now, this is depression and suicide. So I'm going to let Arsha talk a little bit about depression. What do you see in someone who's depressed?
So depression is probably one of the most common things that I see in the Muslim community. I have an outpatient practice through Penn Medicine, and depression is what brings people in the most. And we talked about how people don't perceive things in reality anymore, right? They're going to look at everything in a sad way, in a way where everything just looks darker and more difficult to do. People will not be sleeping as well as they normally do. They'll wake up in the middle of the night or wake up too early in the morning for no apparent reason, right? Because some people won't be able to go to sleep after Fajr and they don't know why. They won't want to eat. They'll stop enjoying food. They won't taste it to them anymore. Even biryani, right? Can you believe that? I can't believe that. I love biryani. People will have these overwhelming feelings of guilt, like I did something wrong, this is all my fault. Energy and focus will be very poor, to the point where they can't perform their jobs correctly, they can't provide for their families. And then sometimes people will physically start to experience pain, chronic pain, diffuse pain all over their bodies. And they'll even get clumsy. People will start and they'll say, oh, I don't know, I fell down the stairs, I tripped, I don't know why. So they'll have that psychomotor changes as well. And then another sign is the suicidal thoughts. If you have any 5 of these symptoms for at least 2 weeks, that is considered clinically major depressive disorder. Only 2 weeks, and you can be diagnosed with this. And this is, people suffer with this. This is a very difficult illness, and it's a real illness. And eventually, untreated, this could lead to suicide. So, and the treatment for this is obviously talk therapy, like Shima mentioned, as well as medications, which we can get into a little bit later.
Thank you. So if we go to the next slide, so as Arshad mentioned, the time limit and how many of those things that he mentioned have to be present. So if we go next slide. So now, it's important to note that every person, 85 to 95% of those have been undiagnosed or diagnosed mental illness with depression leading the cause, right? And so this is important to note because when someone gets to that point, they don't just wake up and decide this is where I want to be. It takes a long time to get to that point. And suicide is not about dying. The person who is having suicidal thoughts, it's not that they want to die, it's they don't know how to live with whatever pain, whatever trauma, whatever burden they're carrying. And that's where we come in, right? Where we can talk about this. And here's the beautiful thing about depression. It is one of the most treatable illnesses out there. It is 80 to 85% success rate if you get the right treatment. Now before we don't click for the next slide, so I'm going to ask the audience a question. So there's 50 states, number 1 being the highest, and number 50 being the lowest. Where is New Jersey in the rates of suicide? Is New Jersey high, low? Between 1 and 50, just shout out numbers, where do you think New Jersey is for rates of suicide? We got 3, 4, so we're saying very high. 20, someone said around the middle. 10, so we're really high. Any other guesses?
High community, that means we have high
3, 4. So we're 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's really high. So we're saying there's really high rates of suicides. When we go to the next slide, oops, another one more. Where do we see New Jersey? 50. Alhamdulillah. Why? Because there's so many Muslims here. Maybe because there's so many Muslims here, right? So we're 50. Now look at the ones that are 1 to 10. What's really common?
50. No, low.
Winter.
I was thinking.
You have longer winter.
I was thinking it too.
Do you think people live close to one another? In New Jersey, you walk out of your house, you can't go 30 minutes without running into somebody. Alhamdulillah. Also, we have more faith communities. We have more resources. Gun control is better.
We have Chai Shai program.
Right? So alhamdulillah, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist here. Alhamdulillah, we have the resources and the treatment and things. So those of you who are going to come to the QPR training, we're going to delve deeper into this, and we're going to learn how you can talk more about that. So I'm going to kind of rush through this a little bit more because I'm going to get to questions from the audience. So we go to the next slide. No, we can go to the next one. So this is what I'm going to be doing, the QPR Gatekeeper training tomorrow. And so one more slide after this. So we're going to be covering, all of this is on the website and on social media. And so the crust of what we're going to do tomorrow at suicide training is not to glamorize, right? It's one of the ultimate sins. We're not glamorizing the sin. What we're doing is glamorizing your role in stopping someone from doing that, right? So when we read the surah from the Quran, right, is whoever saves a life, it's as if you save all of humanity. When you think about people saving lives, who do you think about? Who saves lives?
Doctors.
Doctors. Did you ever think that you asking one question could stop someone from killing themselves? And that's what tomorrow's going to be about, is how do you do that? So what we're going to do now is just hand the mic back over to the Imam to open for any questions.
Before we take questions from the audience, we have a mic. One second. I have a question for you both, Dr. Arshad or Sister Sheena, because this is a real life situation that I'm dealing with. There's a couple for the last year that I'm counseling, they come in my office. I just want to share the scenario because this question is very related to medication. The question is, can you discuss the role of medication in treating mental health disorders and how it complements other forms of therapy? And the scenario that I'm giving you, sister and brother, is that a wife approached me and said, I need help, my marriage not working out, and my husband is very abusive, beats me, this, blah, blah, blah. They came in here, I sat with them, talked with them, and they said, you need to reach a medical professional. And so fast forward a few months later, they both came and she said he's diagnosed with bipolar disorder and he had been given medication. I said, okay, good. At least you listened to my advice. You went there and he started taking medication. Fast forward 3-4 months later, again she gives me a call. She said, I need help. We both want to come. And then when they came in, she said he has stopped taking his medication. Initially he was diagnosed bipolar disorder, hypomelic, I think something she mentioned. And I asked him why you're not taking medication, and he said, I don't want to use medication. I said, you're not taking your medication is ruining your marriage. And so that's what my question to you is.
So medication's role in mental illness, basically we have, like Imam mentioned, there's chemicals in the body that regulate your mood, norepinephrine, serotonin, and dopamine, right? These are 3 chemicals that are, sometimes they can become imbalanced and need correction. The same way your blood sugar needs correction after eating too much keto, right? Right? Your blood sugar gets high, you need insulin, you need metformin, you need something to regulate it. Same concept here. Sometimes with depression, serotonin and norepinephrine, and even with bipolar disorder, they get imbalanced. So the age-old question is, how do I get my husband or wife to take their medicine, in any field of medicine? That is the #1 problem that we encounter as physicians. The question that needs to be asked is, sir, are you having side effects? Why don't you want to take it? What's bothering you so much about the medicine? So it's important to engage in the conversation. The husband and wife should listen and say, why? What's wrong with the medicine? Is there something that's bothering you? And then you go to either the imam or you go to the doctor and say, oh, it stops me from tasting, or it stops me, it's giving me headaches. This is all easily fixable, right? So the key point here is the discussion. Most issues, when they make it to the imam, is the communication is not perfect, right? Sometimes you're talking at each other and not listening to each other. So with medication, most of the time, imam, it's usually because the person is not able to tolerate the side effects, and that's why they don't take it. So we have that discussion with the physician. Does that answer your question?
Okay, one more question, because there's another scenario I'm dealing with. 25-year-old youth, unmarried, and his 55-year-old father, they have been seeing me, I've been counseling them. The 25-year-old, he's a graduate from college, but he doesn't work. He's in depression, and the father brought him here with me. I had a session with him, I had multiple sessions. He just refuses to get out of the house, and the father is worried, how's he gonna go about his life, his career, how's he gonna get married, have kids, have family, because he's just totally depressed. So the question related to that is that how can individuals and communities be better prepared to support someone experiencing a mental health crisis?
So this is the best question, right? So how do you help somebody? So the goal is to meet them where they are and not where we want them to be, right? So the father wants him to have a job, to be a productive citizen, to do productive things. But we first have to meet him where he is. Now, all of us have had a friend who's come to visit us, right? And let's say you have a friend coming to see you at your house, and they get lost, and they call you, and they go, Soraya, I'm lost. What is the first question you ask them? Where are you? Why do we need to know where they are? So I can guide them, so I can help them, right? Sorry, I got really excited you guys answered, right? So that's how we answer this, right? We first have to meet people where they are because we can't guide them to where they need to be if we don't know what's surrounding them. What's another question we ask? What road did you take? How did you get lost? Tell me what's around you. What do you see? Right? So a situation like this with this young man is we know where he needs to be. But we need to know where he is right now. And when upon asking questions, it sounds like he has symptoms of depression. And the more information we get, just like our friend who's lost, the more information we get about where she is, the easier it is for us to get her to where she needs to be. And that, in answering this question, is ask those questions. It's okay to ask no questions. A person might say, I don't know. Okay, tell me how you got here. So keeping the individual engaged and gathering as much information as you can will tell you what you need to do to help this individual. And it seems like they may need some professional help, and that's okay. And you can guide them in getting that.
Okay, so we can take questions. Brother Rashid, go ahead.
Hello. Okay. So, like physical health, doctors and professionals, they ask us to do physical activities, sleep better. So what are the proactive actions or steps we can take even before going into this state? As a father, as a parent, as his brothers and sisters, what we can do to avoid such situation?
So this is my opinion. I think everybody should have dinner together every day, even if you have nothing to talk about. Everybody should be seated at the table, no phones, no TV, no tablets, and even if you have a moment of silence and nobody's talking, it's okay, because then tomorrow night, Aisha will know, oh, I can talk at the dinner table, and I can bring this up, and she'll be comfortable, right? So not every conversation has to be very focused, and don't even walk in to dinner saying, under pressure and saying, I need to talk about this, this, and this, and this. No. Just let it be. And you'll be amazed at what your kids tell you at the dinner table when they're eating. When you want people to relax, you eat with them. And you can see that I'm very preoccupied with food because I haven't eaten yet either. But if you really want to relate to something, and especially your family, have dinner together. That's the best advice I can give.
And to add to that is when you do talk, be ready to respond in a positive way. So if you're healthy and you go to the gym, if you go to a walk, and someone keeps telling you, you're fat, you're ugly, well, this is not going to help you, what are you doing? Just like if someone opens up and says, I'm sad, well, why are you sad? When you challenge somebody and make them feel a certain way for doing something healthy, like opening up, it's going to make them not do it. So just like you go to the gym, you want people encouraging you to do healthy things. So when someone opens up about their sadness, encourage them to continue talking so that you can help them.
So my question is ADHD and ODD. Is that is a mental health also because that causes the behavior issues for the kids? So and then you have to deal your kid with these things because his behavior is heavier. And then what difference between depression and anxiety? And how we can cope that kind of kid, at home.
That can definitely be challenging. Absolutely. Behavioral problems amongst children are a major stressor for parents. Both attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and oppositional defiant disorder are real mental illness. Okay? And they involve neurotransmitter activity that needs to be corrected in addition to behavioral therapy and shaping behavior. So it's all treatable, but if you have tried everything at home and are not able to get the help needed, first I would go to a therapist to have the child evaluated, and then the therapist will refer to a psychiatrist if need be, or go to your primary care doctor. Give your mom a break. Go to your primary care doctor first for that situation. So what brother said was, it's always very hard to find Muslim psychiatrists and therapists after COVID.
So we have almost 3 million Muslims in New Jersey, and the number of therapists we can't keep up, right? So there is a group of therapists that we are working together. We are trying to get a list of all of us who are in private practice and other of us who are doing other work along with psychiatrists. But I also want to say that there are non-Muslims who are very well trained and culturally competent in this work as well. And so, and I know some of them personally, and they do better work sometimes than some of us in our own community do. But I understand the trust that you want from going to a therapist or a Muslim psychiatrist. There's that understanding, the unsaid understanding. But if you are not able to get with a Muslim therapist, and we are trying to work very hard, we are encouraging the younger generation to go into the mental health field. It is a good field to go into. It is a field that you are needed in, absolutely needed in. And in the meantime, we do have very well-trained professionals who can understand the Muslim community, because Arshad and I work with them, and we are educating that side of the community. Sisters.
How do you address the stigma that mental health illness
So the question is, how do you fight the stigma around someone who's getting help for mental health? They're just not normal. Right now they've been labeled. So this is the first way we do it, right? We bring the dialogue into our community. Why is there stigma? Because there's a lack of education around it, lack of understanding around it, and no dialogue, right? So how do we fight this? Is doing exactly what your masjid is doing today, is starting that conversation. And how do you continue fighting it? Is that you continue the conversation. Alhamdulillah, you have no idea how blessed you are to have an imam like you have here, who is so open to not only talk about it, but also self-disclose. I had tears in my eyes when he was talking about his son. It gave me chills. Your imam, your leader, is doing this. So the best way is, A, you have the leaderboard, but you also continuing that dialogue and educating the community.
Same thing, asking, being brave, right? The way Hafiz Shahir was brave, and the way you were brave to even ask the question. You know, we're Muslims, we're stigmatized everywhere we go, right? It doesn't stop us. We go strong. We educate people about what we're about. It's the same thing with mental health. We learn, we educate, and we discuss the same way we're doing that here today.
Let me just add, when I disclosed to the community 2 weeks ago that my son is in the hospital, you'd be surprised how many people called me and scolded me that how dare you talk about your own son very public. I said, you don't know what you're talking about. Because I have to inform the society and community that this issue is very important. And one person, not from this masjid, but another masjid, he said, oh, but there are HIPAA laws and all that. I said, you think I'm not going to ask my son before telling about it? Of course I asked him and he was fine. He's very brave. He said, yes, Baba, tell the people because he's young. He's only 24-year-old. There are a lot of 22, 24-year-olds who may be hiding inside their home. We need to bring them out. And that's the reason we're having this conversation. Another question? Yes, brother, go ahead.
Would you recommend someone who's already finished with college to get into the career path that you're talking about, like becoming a licensed therapist?
So if you become a licensed therapist in any state, you need a master's degree in either social work or clinical psychology. And so you can have your undergraduate in anything. That's the beauty of our field, is you can have your undergraduate in any degree. An important thing to note is to look at programs that will meet your needs, right? So when I went to Rutgers, I was the only Muslim there. I was the only South Asian there. It was very hard. I almost dropped out. And my advisor, who happened to be Puerto Rican, said, I'm done. I can't do this field. Nobody looks like me, no one sounds like me. And he said, Shima, this is exactly what I'm thinking of. So at 21 years old, I made dua. I said, Allah, let me just one day walk into a classroom filled with people who look like me and sound like me. 2 years ago, I went to Pakistan, and I entered into a clinical psych first-year batch of students finishing with clinical psych. And as I'm talking to them about being a therapist, I stopped and I'm standing in the dua I made when I was your age, right? So to answer your question, yes, you can get a master's, you get a licensed therapist. To become a psychiatrist, you need to have a science background and have the prerequisites needed to go into medical school and eventually become a psychiatrist. You have a question? It's free to go to expensive to go what are some movies that you feel I'm trying to some others like Dr. mentioned about that you could and somebody wants to add to that question, so it's a very good question.
I work with a lot of youth in my community, and I think the number one thing is that people are like scared to meet people. And I'm talking to a lot of sisters, older and younger. Either they don't have the money to afford therapy, or they would rather deal with like alcohol. So again, that's a really good question.
So thank you for that question. Yes, therapy can be very, very expensive, but there are resources first to answer that question that are free. So the question was, so therapy is not, it's expensive. So, and if I can't afford it, what are other things I can do to help my mental health? Is that, I got it, right? So first thing is, the beauty about the state of New Jersey is that they put a lot of money in, particularly with college students for mental health. If you're currently a college student, free therapy through your college, and even further, the governor gave millions of dollars for you to get free online therapy through UWorld. No college, as long as you have a college email address, you will get free therapy. So if you are working with youth, even if you're a high school student and have an EDU, a account, they can go onto your web.
So do kids have to tell their parents that they're going into therapy? Is important. So finding the right people to talk to. If you are in a place where you are not able to function, like Arshad said, it's at a mental illness state, you do need to get the help. So if you have insurance, it will cover at least a psychiatrist. If you look on the back of your insurance card, it says behavioral health. It covers all of that as well. Did I answer your question?
Yes, so wellness is a big thing in New Jersey. If you type in wellness, there are tons of wellness organizations that provide resources and things that you can do on wellness, right? So type in New Jersey mental health and wellness. The governor has put a lot of money into this ever since COVID, particularly for the youth.
So I think your question was also regarding what's some lifestyle modifications that you can do to optimize mental health. Aside from coming to the masjid and seeing people, what we're lacking nowadays is shared experiences, right? Everything is very individualized, right? Everybody's on their phones, everybody's watching different TV shows, doing things in congregation, doing things in groups, having shared experiences, going to a sporting event together, exercising together will release dopamine, which is your body's happy chemical. And so exercise is probably one of the most efficient ways to optimize your body's dopamine release. So even going for a walk 30 minutes a day, 40 minutes a day, going with your friend will optimize that release even more. So those are small little things that you can do to optimize it.
Somebody asked me in my office once when I was doing counseling, is there a dopamine pill that they use? So you heard that from the medical profession. There is no dopamine pill. I don't know why so many people ask me that, there is a pill till you find out. I said, no, there is no. We want to inshallah have dinner, so right up here, thank you so much for all of you brothers and sisters coming tonight. I want to thank Sister Shima, Dr. Bashir, mashallah, for doing a marvelous job. And we hope to continue this conversation in the future. Please, if you did not register for the workshop, the QPR's website or mission workshop, please do it right now. The Google forms are there in the WhatsApp group, and inshallah, we'll have dinner now. If you're not in the group, then brothers there can have you. Isha tonight, Isha will be 10:25, inshallah. We'll have the dinner and then Isha. Let's have the sisters go out, and then we can have the brothers come forward, inshallah. So sisters, please, inshallah, go downstairs. You can ask Sister Shima questions.